Deadline delay, state government again pushing back the budget deadline to continue to work out the details on the final state budget. We'll hear from an expert on what the biggest holdups could be. Hello and welcome to Empire State Weekly. I'm John Gray in Albany. State lawmakers again delaying the deadline for the final state budget. A budget extender has been passed now, so state employees and the National Guard will get paid on time. However, lawmakers will not be getting paid until the budget is ultimately passed. The extender lasts through the weekend, with lawmakers expected to pass another extender before the work week starts to allow those negotiations to continue into next week. Joining us now to give additional insight on the ongoing budget process and what some of the holdups might be, Ron Deutsch, the director for New Yorkers for Fiscal Fairness. Ron, we know you're out on the West Coast. Thanks for joining us here via Zoom.
Thanks so much for having me, John. Appreciate it.
What are you hearing from down there? They keep doing these extenders. They want more and more time, more time. Is there one or two particular issues that are kind of holding things up?
Yeah, I think there's been a number of sticking points in this year's budget, and certainly not the least of which has been education and housing. So the education issue seems to be resolved now, and there's an agreement on the part of the governor and legislative leaders that they will continue with kind of a hold harmless provision. So schools won't be losing money this year, but they're going to revisit the foundation formula next year. So that seems to be an agreement that they've struck. And then also on housing, I think that still remains to be seen. And that's definitely one of the major sticking points in this year's budget.
What are they looking for in housing? Is it just literally money to build housing, and in particular in the cities like New York City, or where they don't have enough affordable housing?
Yeah, I think we have a real affordable housing crunch going on in New York right now. It's really hard for working class New Yorkers to afford either rental housing or even a mortgage. So at this point in time, what they're doing is they're trying to restructure this massive tax incentive program for developers called 421A. And the sticking point seems to be, the unions and the Real Estate Board of New York are left to kind of negotiate a deal amongst themselves to try and get this passed. And then there are also hanging out there a variety of bills around tenant protections, like good cause eviction, that would protect tenants from getting evicted, and also large rent increases. So all of these issues are still on the table and have to be resolved. And that is definitely one of the major sticking points right now.
I feel like you touched on something. It's almost falls under the making of the sausage. No one wants to see it, but do people not understand that when you're going to write legislation, a lot of times they want to bring in the people it's going to affect and say, we're navigating this new area, we want to help in this way. And not that they would write the legislation for the lawmakers, but they do have some input. And if they can't all get on the same page, that can really bog things down.
Yeah, and look, this is my 30th budget, and I really haven't seen something like this being done so publicly, where the legislature is kind of ceding its power to the Real Estate Board of New York and the construction trade unions and allowing them to negotiate their own deal. But the reality is these groups have to come together on this for this to work effectively. So I think the legislature is wise to, allow them to negotiate and try and come up with something that suits all parties. But whether or not they can and whether or not they're operating in good faith still remains to be seen.
And for those who might say that, because we see lobby days where everybody's got a sign outside the Capitol saying, fully fund this, fully fund that. A lot of them advertise on TV stations all over New York State, especially in Albany. There is a limited pot of money, right? I mean, and just, I'll start there. You can't just print money like the federal government and just spend money you don't have. It's got to be accounted for, right?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, unlike the federal government, New York has a requirement to have a balanced budget each year. So in order to do that, we need to make sure that our revenues and expenditures are matching up. And this year, interestingly enough, the Senate and the Assembly and their one-house budget proposals pushed forward a number of different revenue raisers, basically targeting people making over $5 million a year, for a small 0.5% to 1% increase in their overall tax rate, which would raise about $2 billion. So a lot of folks have been really saying that this is the way to go because it would create a greater tax fairness for, in particular, for the very wealthy who haven't been paying their fair share, according to many.
Yeah, that's a balancing act, isn't it? Because if you go after them too aggressively, you get some flight where you don't want to see the big money leaving New York City and leaving New York and taking that taxable income with them, correct?
I think that's been one of the things that people have been talking about whenever we talk about an increase on the wealthy, that they will flee. But I think the research has really borne out the fact that it's people making between, say, 32,000 and 65,000 that are leaving the state in higher numbers because they simply can't afford to live here. And if we can create some programs and services that ease that burden for working class New Yorkers by asking the very wealthiest who've been doing extremely well to pay just a little bit more, I think that's a plan that makes sense.
The wealthy are often very shrewd with their lawyers and their tax lawyers and loopholes. Does it always work when you go after them for more money, or do they figure out ways to keep more of their money? And does it not land quite where we hope it's going to land in terms of revenue coming in?
I think we're pretty good at forecasting how much revenue would be generated by this, but there's no question. I mean, the wealthiest 1/3 of 1% that this would target have cadres of tax attorneys doing their work. But one of the interesting proposals that was also on the table that's not getting a lot of attention is the fact that, since 2010, we've cut the number of auditors at Tax and Finance by about 42%. So many folks, in particular, Public Employees Federation has been talking about the need to hire an additional 400 auditors in New York State, and that could generate upwards of $1.1 to $1.5 billion. So just through tax compliance alone. So I think we need to make sure that the wealthiest are indeed paying their fair share of taxes.
Yeah, I would think just the fact if there's more auditors, the people preparing your taxes say, look, they're really looking for stuff like this. Let's really color inside the lines and not get in a situation where you're being audited and they're turning you upside down, shaking you by the ankles, and who knows what they're going to find, right?
Right. Well, the old expression is he who has the gold makes the rules. So I think the tax system has been designed to make sure that the wealthiest keep their money.
Last 30 seconds or so. I've been around this town a long time. This is not really considered a late budget. I've seen them go much lower. At what point do you have to sort of worry about it affecting other things in the state if they go too long? We're still pretty close to April 1st, where it's not a big issue yet, correct?
Yeah, and I think everybody has been very amenable to doing budget extenders, and there hasn't been any big hullabaloo about that. So I think we're moving forward in a rational way, and I've always been a proponent of a good budget rather than a timely budget. And we're nowhere near any point right now that this is going to cause any kind of chaos structurally in terms of our revenue streams and or fiscal policy. So I think I want to make sure we get the right budget for New York State and for New Yorkers, and I for one am willing to wait for that. But I'm predicting probably around April 17th.
All right, we'll wait together then. Ron Deutsch, Director for the New Yorkers for Fiscal Fairness. Thanks for coming on today. Has safe travels back from the West Coast. Well, we're just one day now removed from the total solar eclipse being viewed here in New York State by some. The event drawing a lot of attention and tourists to the state. We'll talk with a ranger with DEC on the steps everyone can take to keep themselves and the family safe during the eclipse. Welcome back to Empire State Weekly. I'm John Gray in Albany. We are now just a day away from the total solar eclipse, Monday, April 8th. In this lead up to this astronomical event, businesses and state officials across New York have been preparing. Now, when it comes to public safety, state officials are expecting a massive influx of tourists. Signs up along the major roadways reminding drivers to expect delays on the day of the eclipse. Department of Transportation preparing the state with similar procedures to how they get ready for a major snowstorm. Parts of western New York declaring a state of emergency to keep crews ready to respond to any situation. Businesses are preparing as well, with some areas booked entirely for the day of the eclipse, while others are facing such a high demand and they're now requiring a 4-night stay just to get a room. Restaurants, other businesses also planning on having viewing parties or other special events surrounding this eclipse. Joining us now to talk more about the safety surrounding the eclipse, Captain Kevin Burns, a ranger with the state DEC. Kevin, thank you for joining us today.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
I feel like this has been years coming, but it's all of a sudden upon us, and there's no panic going on. It seems like everybody, including the state especially, is sort of organizing this very carefully to respond. How big a deal is this eclipse, though? I mean, we're close to it, but people are coming from all over.
As we see the weather improving over the next couple of days, I think it's going to be a very big event. I think that we may see quite a bit of, incoming traffic in the North Country here.
And I've seen the signs along the side of the road, sort of, it's not a warning, but just a heads up, like, hey, be careful, this is happening, expect delays. What are your concerns? Delays is going to be one of them, right? In some of these roads, trying to get anywhere around where the full eclipse is going to be?
Yeah, I think the biggest concern is after the event, when people try to return back down to the south or back to hotel rooms from the viewing sites. That's where the concern is, and traffic jams may occur. Again, we're hoping for the best. There's a lot of planning that went on. State police, they've done an extensive amount of planning for this. Probably 2 years out, they started this process. So I think they are going to have a really good handle on how to handle the traffic following the event on Monday.
And in terms of it being afterwards, is that because leading up to it, you probably have it stagnated, right? You got people coming in today, some different days, all different days coming up leading up to it, but once it's over, they're all going to want to go.
Right. I think most of the hotels up here require 2 or 3 night booking. So people are going to start trickling in here probably on Saturday, Sunday. Early Monday morning, you may see some traffic coming from the south or even from the Canadian border. So it'll trickle in over the course of the day. Following the event, that's when we could see some issues, and we're hoping for the best.
I know when they have the big fireworks show in Albany at the plaza, the biggest concern, and no matter how much they warn people, some people still do it, not bright. They try to say, well, I'll get up on this off-ramp and I'll just pull over to have this great view. I'm assuming that's what you want to really avoid, people trying to stop somewhere. I'll just drive up there. I don't have to book a hotel room. I'll drive up there a couple hours before. I'll sit on the hood of the car, open the moon roof, and look up, and I'll be all set. That's not what we want to see, right?
Correct. And I think they did witness that back in 2017 when the West Coast had the eclipse. They saw a lot of individuals just pulling over on the side of the road, blocking traffic. State police is asking everybody to be as courteous as they can be. Please find an appropriate place to pull off the road, a safe location, do not impede any traffic, and, use your head, please. Be smart about this. There's plenty of places available for people to view this safely and off the traffic, the route, the different routes of corridors up here, like the 73 corridor off the Northway.
Yeah, people don't realize if they've never been to Placid, Route 73 you mentioned is about 28 miles. I looked at it on the MapQuest between the Northway, 87, and getting you to Lake Placid, and it's not like a quick road on a good day. So I'm assuming people think they're going to put the kids in the car, at 9 or 10 in the morning, just drive north. That might not work out for them, right? You could get stuck on some of these roads, and you might miss everything, right?
Yeah, absolutely, John. And Mother Nature just gave us a 2-foot storm. It's still snowing here in Saranac Lake, actually. So a lot of those corridors that we're talking about are going to have snowbanks. A week ago, there was no snowbanks. Now we're going to have snowbanks. A lot of the pull-offs are not going to be accessible to the public. So people need to be really aware of that.
Yeah, we're mentioning that, you guys are almost treating it, when you say you guys, I mean the state, DEC, state DOT, like it's, almost like a snow event coming. If it was a snow event coming, you'd be probably advising people make sure you have a full tank of gas, make sure you get the right clothing. And is that similar to what this is? If you are going to venture somewhere, if you're planning it out, be smart about it and what you bring and how you prepare. Phones fully charged, that kind of thing.
Yeah, and again, the state police have been putting out public notices asking people to do just what you said. Be prepared, have full tanks of gas, anticipate sitting on the road in traffic, have warm blankets with you, food, things like that. State police have done a great job of trying to relay that message out there. They're going to be actually taking care of most of the traffic in the North Country. New York State Forest Rangers are focusing on the concerns of the backcountry and the trail networks here in the High Peaks region.
Well, you led me into my next question, because usually with these things, it falls on DOT and state police, but I still call it NCON, DEC. You're very much involved. What is your fear? People get up on these trails that have got fresh snow. Maybe they're not wearing the right gear. Maybe they're just think, oh, I'll hike up a mountain, I'll get this amazing view, and that's not on a good day. That's not always a good idea.
Right. Prior to this storm, we were concerned about unprepared individuals, inexperienced hikers coming to the North Country to climb some high peaks so they can see this amazing event. We had 3 to 4 feet of snow on the trail systems last week. Today, we've got an additional 2 feet of snow on the trail system. So the trail conditions last week, the hazardous trail conditions that were present last week, are currently even worse than they were 3 days ago. So we're really concerned about this. Coming into this weekend, individuals are not aware of the fact that a nor'easter just hit this particular area for the last couple of days. They're going to encounter quite a bit of snow in the backcountry. And the trail conditions right now are not conducive for any trail hiking or any backcountry use. So we're recommending people go to the pre-established viewing areas here in the local Tri-Lakes area and utilize those rather than going into the backcountry.
Can you close those, do they call it, is it a trailhead where you go in? Can you close all that off, or is it impossible to keep people out if they really want to get through, because it is wilderness, really?
Well, this is all public land, so people have the right to access the public land. We will not stand there telling them that that High Peaks region is closed. Our goal is to be at most of these active trailheads and educate people as to the fact that the trail conditions are poor at this time, and we highly recommend that they do not enter the backcountry. And we'll vet them. We'll look at how prepared are these individuals? Are they ready to go into the backcountry? Do they have snowshoes? Do they have microspikes, ski poles? Are they prepared to enter the backcountry safely? If not, we're going to highly recommend that these people venture into the local townships here and try to find an established viewing area.
All right, well, Captain Kevin Burns, I hope you, at some point of all this 2 years of planning, you get to put on your special glasses and look up and enjoy this a little bit.
John, I do. I plan on being out there. I will be out there bright and early on Monday at one of these trailheads, just like I spoke of. And yeah, I will. I'm looking forward to this, and I'm hoping that everybody has an amazing Eclipse event and they're all safe.
All right, Captain Kevin Burns with the DEC, thank you so much for being on with us today. Pushing reforms to make the public safer. That's the renewed call from Republicans in the legislature, what they're calling for to be included in the final state budget. By the way, if you have a comment or story idea, please let us know about it. Email us at news@news10.com. We're also on X, which everybody still calls Twitter, @WTEN. Welcome back to Empire State Weekly. I'm John Gray in Albany. Republican lawmakers are making a renewed push to get public safety reforms funded in the final state budget. While the governor's included measures in her budget proposal to decrease retail crime, Republican lawmakers support more changes. They'd like to see bail reform entirely reversed and judges get more discretion when sentencing.
When they say a judge can't take in the dangerousness to a community, they can't take that in effect, they say, why? That's crazy. Every other state does it. Why not New York? So we can tinker with it. Obviously, we'd like to see substantial changes, but anything's better than nothing, in my opinion.
They also want to include legislation that would make certain offenses against first responders a hate crime, as well as parole reform. Officials in New York City also taking steps to increase public safety. The city's Mayor Eric Adams revealing the latest crime stats for the year. Adams showing there's some frustration with some of the messaging about crime. Let's take a listen.
Can we please stop saying we're up in crime in our subway system? We are not. We're down.
First quarter of the year does show a decrease in crimes, down 1% compared to the same time last year. Police saying a new surge in officers in the subways has led to a 53% more arrests. That's nearly a 26-year high. However, the mayor does acknowledge the reality of those numbers may not match the perception of many New Yorkers.
These guys can bring crime down to zero. But if you don't feel safe because you see this disorder going on, then you're going to say that, hey, we're not safe. And so what we are doing, what this team is doing, is making sure our officers are visible.
The mayor blaming much of the city's crime on mental health and repeat offenders taking advantage of recent criminal justice reform efforts. Stick around, back with a look at the week ahead in just a bit. If you have a comment or story idea, please let us know about it. You can email us at news@news10.com. You can also reach out to us on X, formerly known as Twitter. We're at WTEN. Finally, in Empire State Weekly, the state currently stagnating on its response to illegal weed shops. In a letter to the governor, lawmakers in the Assembly and the state Senate demanding a crackdown on these illegal shops be included in the final state budget. The Assembly has included some measures that would fund a crackdown in their one-house budget, but until there's a final budget passed, any crackdown remains in limbo. Be sure to keep an eye on the issue for you, and developments will pass them along on the show. For now, from all of us here at Empire State Weekly, I'm John Gray in Albany. We'll see you right here next week. And don't forget, you can watch Empire State Weekly all over New York State. Here's a full schedule of Empire State Weekly on 10 TV stations across the great state of New York.